$16 billion in relief for farmers, but fresh doubts about a bill to rebuild infrastructure. Higher education and the money needed to earn a degree. Come autumn, the price will go up. Casino confusion in Polk County. Maybe we can clear the air. Maybe. But first, the Arkansas bureaucracy. Can the 15 women and men of the governor's new cabinet give him and taxpayers what he says he needs and they deserve? Mr. Hutchinson's senior assistant. Next on Arkansas Week.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.
A plan to compensate farmers caught in the trade war and infrastructure plan, that's a different story. And a game of chance in the Arkansas River Valley. We'll cover that and more in a moment with our Reporters Roundtable. But first, the biggest reorganization of Arkansas's executive branch in a half century. Governor Hutchinson this week introduced the 15 cabinet officers who will report to him and presumably to his chief of staff, Allison Williams, who joins us now. Ms. Williams, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Does the administration have a timeline as to how quickly this can be effected? You're talking about a lot of agencies.
It is a lot. A big reorganization, as you said, the largest in almost half a century. But the governor is very confident in the talent that he's assembled for his new cabinet. And so in the next few days, you'll see the more appointments rolling out for sub-cabinet level positions. Yesterday, Dr. Childers was announced for workforce services. And there will be transformation action teams created at each of the 15 departments. The point being to have multiple levels of employees in state government providing guidance and information to those new secretaries about how to best organize, but also what pain points they may expect to experience.
Well, Mr. Hutchinson says this can save literally millions of dollars when fully effected. Through attrition, through layoffs, through downsizing, or efficiency is what the administration.
Absolutely, and we absolutely expect that. Not through layoffs. I think the governor has been very clear that he expects any reductions in the number of state government employees to come through attrition. So folks who retire and their responsibilities being transferred over to another state government employee. The others will be in terms of lease agreements, potential for enterprise-wide contracts that would lower the cost per state government employee. IT contracts, for example, come specifically to mind. Human resources, finance, so all of these agencies that had their own teams working on those sort of technical and HR and personnel related matters now being consolidated, not immediately, but in the future being consolidated to support an entire department.
After in the brief years after the last reorganization, the bumpers reorganization of 1971, we saw some adjustments in the organizational table, the schematic of the executive branch. Is it fair to assume that those may prove necessary in the years to come, in the near term?
Well, let me answer that from two points. One is absolutely we believe that we don't expect that there won't be additional suggestions of how we might change, and some of those I would expect that we would entertain. However, the governor has been very clear at looking at the history of the bumpers reorganization and what lessons we could learn to make sure that this time it sticks, that we don't balloon back out from 13 agencies to 42, and that we can maintain some modicum of that control and centralization of responsibility. So I think what the governor would say, we know that it may not be perfect, but we certainly worked very closely with a lot of stakeholder groups to get it as close to perfect as we can. And we'll continue to listen to those various constituencies about how to serve Arkansans better.
On another subject, Mr. Hutchinson will soon be in the air again,
Yes.
Off on yet another trade mission. His task of bringing investment capital to Arkansas and getting Arkansas products abroad, or at least outside our borders, would seem to be made rather more problematic by the trade wars between not only the U.S. and the Asian nations, specifically China, but Canada, Mexico as well. How much more difficult?
Certainly challenging in terms of talking to those farmers in Arkansas, particularly who grow soybeans and have been significantly impacted by the tariffs. But I think the president has, with the $16 billion investment that he just agreed to make yesterday, has helped to take some of that edge off of our farmers who are experiencing that. And certainly with some of the ongoing negotiations with USMCA, the quote new NAFTA, that the aluminum and steel tariffs being reduced are helpful, because we may not have an OEM, may not produce cars here in Arkansas, but we're certainly in that supply chain, and that matters.
Parts.
Yeah.
Right. Well, is the administration, the Hutchinson administration, is there a channel of communications either through the congressional delegation or to Mr. Trump's staff from Mr. Hutchinson saying, please?
Regularly. We certainly are in lockstep with the delegation on our message to the president. Both in terms of making sure that the United States is in a position well into the future to be competitive, while recognizing that we have some immediate needs that our farmers in particular are experiencing. And so we have regular communication both at the staff level, through the delegation, and directly principal to principal, the governor to the president, expressing those concerns.
One of the four big T's, in addition to that Mr. Hutchinson wanted to accomplish, he got, which was the highway program, transportation program.
Indeed.
But certainly the state would appreciate a little help from Washington. It doesn't appear in the near term like that's feasible, or correct me.
No, I think that's right. But the governor showed great vision on getting the maintenance program passed with the legislature, with the legislature's help in the last session, to ensure that our existing highways are going to have the money that they need in order to be maintained. Excuse me. And then he's looking forward to getting back out on the campaign trail in the next few months and talking about and telling the Arkansans, the Arkansas citizens, why this extension of the half-cent sales tax is so important to increasing the number of highway miles and bettering the system overall.
And on to another subject, you've got a computer summit coming up.
We do, June 10th. We're very excited about it. Governor Hutchinson has been able to present an agenda that has garnered 29 states' engagement. We expect that to grow. But the point being, we're focused on K through 12, in particular, computer science education, which, as you know, has been a hallmark of his administration since the campaign. And so we look forward to welcoming those guests to the mansion on June 10th. And
it will, simply underscore or move the ball forward?
Both. We'll be talking about what has made Arkansas successful. So Code.org, a nationally recognized computer science organization, has highlighted Arkansas's leadership in computer science education. So we'll both be sharing our best practices and how we got to where we are, and also taking best practices and leadership from other states who will be in attendance.
Allison Williams, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll be right back with a roundtable. And back with the gang now, including Chris Hausnick from the Political Science faculty at Arkansas Tech, Lance Turner from Arkansas Business, Wes Brown from Talk Business and Politics. This past week we got to, some of them were familiar faces, but Wes, Governor Hutchinson's new cabinet, 15 as Ms. Williams was saying earlier, 15 cabinet officers, secretaries, as it were.
Yeah, cabinet level, kind of fashion after what's at the national level. You have cabinet level departments, and you've got, I guess, 15 new. And I think we already knew that who was going to. Really no big surprises of who was going to be named. We got the big departments, Department of Commerce, Mike Preston, who was over Arkansas Economic Development, and then you have the normal DHS is pretty much the same, DFA is pretty much the same, and then you have some new Department of Safety. It's probably the biggest surprise. You have which is have the Arkansas State Police, and William Bryant he will not be the head of that. But he will be a direct port to Governor Hutchinson. So that's the big surprise. I guess the question is how much will it really be transformed, and how much savings will it be? The governor said there will be about 15 million in savings, but I think you'll see over time government may grow or it may shrink. We'll have to wait and see.
Rarely shrinks. But at any rate, there is, you look at it from the table of organization, there's a logic to it. There's an apparent logic to it in terms, Lance.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, I think it's interesting, the governor pointed this out, and it's in his interest to do so, but you've got 7 women on that among that 15, and that's the highest number of women you've had in the cabinet in Arkansas history. So that, I think, is notable too. And just sort of the combinations that are there all tend to make sense. And there will definitely be growing pains. And I think anytime you're doing this kind of a reorganization and combining departments, and some people who were top dogs are no longer top dogs, they're reporting to somebody else, and there'll be some shuffling. All of these cabinet secretaries have the power now to go and remake their staffs, and that'll be the thing to watch, I think, going ahead. We've got the first of those announcements from Mike Preston yesterday, naming a division head within his department, and so you're going to have a lot of those, and those will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and there are a couple positions like Mike Preston. He'll continue to be over the economic development, but also he'll oversee all the other departments. Department of Insurance is in that, and so that's going to be interesting to see how they can combine their talents to continue to go out and find jobs, but also oversee this huge bureaucracy that's been created with all the other agencies that come under his banner now. So.
I agree with what the gentleman has said, and I think Governor Hutchinson's timing is really good. You've got 4 years of a second term. It's not like he's a brand new governor just elected trying to rechange all this and get his administration going. So I think he's got the time and not facing another re-election that he can get a lot of these things ironed out, these little turf wars and battles clear before you get into whoever runs the next time around.
Speaking of turf wars, and this is not continental wars anyway, and we're talking about trade, there was some news for American farmers this past week out of Washington, and that's a second aid package, direct compensation for farmers who are incurring losses because of the battle mostly between Beijing and Washington.
Yes, 16 billion in subsidies will go to the farmers. Arkansas farmers will be affected because there are a lot of row crops that are going to get these subsidies. But I still think there's a sentiment out there that we need to get this trade war over because we want to compete. We want to get back on the global stage. China is the elephant in the room, so to speak, because China still imports 44% of the goods into Arkansas, and we have a trade deficit with that, and it's going to continue, and that balance is really hurting Arkansas farmers. You have it in the row crops such as cotton, rice, and then you also have it in protein, chicken, and the animal products. So it's hurting Arkansas specifically and a lot of the farming states.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I'd agree. One of the interesting things is that there's a lot of moving parts going on behind the scenes. One of the things, like out of Washington, you're starting to see even Republicans are wary of what's going on. Senator Grassley of Iowa, sort of staunch Republican, big farming state, has said, they're putting out these sort of subsidies and bailouts in planting season, and what they're worried about is that farmers may react if they're deciding between 3 or 4 different crops. If they know there is a soybean subsidy out there, if things go poorly, they may change their behavior. They will not plant based on markets, but they may plant based on on government backstops.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that I think this is the second round of subsidies that we've had. I think farmers got $12 billion or so last year. I think what the fear now is that signals that this is going to be long and drawn out, that perhaps both sides are sort of digging in their heels and preparing for a longer negotiation. I think right now there are no meetings planned between the U.S. and China to continue negotiations, and so I think that's the concern too. Obviously, no one likes a trade war, and I think farmers on the outset had been willing to give the administration some time to do this and take this down the road, but now I think the concern is that, well, how long is this going to take, and does this mean that we're in this for the long haul?
What I have heard from farm sources for weeks now is not so much this year, but the loss of markets long term. U.S. is not the only country that grows soybeans.
Yeah, I mean, one of the countries that's coming in on both the issue of proteins is Brazil. Brazil is starting to gain market share with Tyson. There's a big a company out of Brazil that is the largest protein company in the world, and it's gaining market share because of this trade embargo with the United States. So, yeah, there's competition. The global market is a competitive marketplace, and we're losing ground in that marketplace.
I'd be looking also. I'd watch towards later July and August. Tariffs are not just on agriculture products, but they are on consumer goods. And it's not bad right now, but I was thinking when you get into July and August, you get into the electronics, apparel, when you get to the back to the school, whether it's college or stuff like that. That's
shoes, textiles,
that's when, but
TVs.
But that's when, you know, average Arkansans and Americans are going to start to feel that prices have gone up on those goods as they're getting ready for, you know, back to school shopping, things of that nature.
And we had a warning just a few days ago from the CFO at Bentonville.
That's right. At Walmart, Brett Biggs has already spoken out when Walmart put its earnings report out last week that's the fear, is that they're going to have to pass on these higher prices to consumers eventually. Now, Walmart and Target, some of these bigger big box organizations, may be willing to absorb some of this for a while.
Yeah, for a while.
But a lot of smaller ones, a lot of your mall stores, a lot of smaller retailers aren't going to be able to do it, and so that gets into, you know, you've already got a retail sector that's really been taking it on the chin just in terms of how things are changing with shoppers, and now you add this to it as well, and that's more challenges. And so yeah, definitely this year it's the thing to watch.
And for a state like Arkansas, where 44% of our imports come from China, we're going to feel the impact a lot earlier than some states like California, who have a smaller share of that. So, but it's going to impact Arkansas pretty bad once it, like you said, in manufacturing and other areas, when cost of goods start going on, the consumer is going to feel that pain.
Raw materials. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe I was told that presently that, well, let's take Walmart, Arkansas-based. More than a third of the items on Walmart shelves come from China.
That's
that
correct.
May be, that sounds right.
Yeah, that's correct, because I mean, and the United States is not the only one. China is while this trade embargo is going on, China is gaining inroads into Africa, gaining inroads into other competitive with Russia. So their market, they're seeing us. So this is a competitive marketplace. We can go elsewhere and continue to sell our goods, whereas the United States, not so much. Our farmers are hurting, our manufacturers are hurting. So I think as you go in the long run, it's going to maybe hurt the United States more than it may hurt China.
And we still, one more thing on the trade deal, we still haven't got signatures on paper. There's a long way to go between Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, the remade NAFTA is still kind of hanging out there too, and so it's NAFTA, new NAFTA, like new Coke, I guess. I don't know, but that's still a lingering thing as well. And for Arkansas does a lot of business with Canada and Mexico, a ton of business.
Yeah, we're first and second in terms of trade. So.
Very important for us.
Yeah. I was going to say, part of what makes this is not just a general trade war. We're tariffing everything on each other. It's very commodity specific. So you're getting, pork, soybeans, but there's plenty of other agriculture commodities in Arkansas that may not be affected now, but one bad round of negotiations, and this could, the story could change very quickly, a month or 3 months from now.
Yeah, and we perhaps in this broadcast anyway have underestimated the manufacturing sector.
Right,
or under-discussing. We'll time for that later. Tuition. Oh, no, before we go there, let's do transportation, because no matter what caused the blow up, whether it was a meltdown or not, suddenly the odds for an infrastructure bill they were never really great, but they seem lower than ever.
President Trump is not happy with the House of Representatives being controlled by Democrats and all the investigations. I think this is locally important because of the I-30 crossing ideas, and he called out transportation specifically, that transportation is not happening until the investigations end, which means whatever they do for I-30, whatever the courts in the future development, it's going to be state dollars and state led. It's not. There's not going to be a federal backstop for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, guys?
Yeah, I think the trickle-down effect for a $2 trillion infrastructure project, where you get all these construction dollars and these dollars coming into local communities, you have a large economic impact from construction dollars when that takes place. We're seeing it in Arkansas with all the construction going on from a bill just passed recently in the legislature. We're seeing that construction and those communities are impacted by those dollars coming into those communities.
It's been Infrastructure Week since January of 2017, I think. And so I think, if there was ever a thing that Democrats and Republicans at that national level could come together on, it would have been infrastructure. I think it would have been massively popular. I think we all recognize that the basic building blocks of our country are sort of falling apart. Roads, bridges, tunnels, all those kinds of things. And so it's unfortunate that, and a little unbelievable too, when a few weeks ago Trump said we're going to do a $2 trillion infrastructure deal. Really? But that would have been great. But apparently everyone can't stay out of each other's way on this.
And here's another conundrum. Chris, we'll start with you because we know the cost of college is going up. I mean, with all the talk about over $1 trillion in student debt, tuition's going up yet again.
Yes. Yes.
And Chris arrived in a Porsche
Conflict
today,
of
by the
interest
way.
here? Or
He showed up in a Cadillac. So.
No, I think higher education is getting more expensive. There's new technology, construction, et cetera. I don't think Arkansas is not that unusual.
No.
But it's in higher education there is tuition raise season. Students leave in the beginning of May. They get together the budgets for the next fiscal year. The Board of Trustees vote on them, late May, early June, and your next incoming class gets, oh, by the way, tuition's gone up, 2.5%, 3%, in some cases 4% for next year.
5%.
Yeah, and a lot of those Board of Trustees meetings that you mentioned are just recently happened or about to happen. Arkansas Tech has announced 4%. I think the U of A system has 3.5%. ASU is going to be a little bit over 4%. So, and then there are some other colleges, SAU, UCA, that are coming online, and they have forecasted a possible rate hike. So it's pretty much going to be all as we noted. It's going to be pretty much across the board for all colleges and universities across the state of Arkansas. They're going to see a little bit ahead of the cost of living, the average cost of living. So,
and no relief in sight. What is going on in Pope County with these casinos? Are we going to have them or not?
There's sort of two tracks. There's certainly much of the process is going to fall into Little Rock. With the Gaming Commission, you're starting to actually get physical applications. There's been a lot of casinos interested. At one point, there were 5 different ones rumored. There's actually 3 who've come really out in front now. Gulfside, Hard Rock, and Cherokee have sent members, talked to city council, things of that nature. But so far, Gulfside just turned in their application to the state. So. Because there's a lot of the local politics. This was a theoretical exercise. They didn't know what they wanted to build, and these are some, like you were talking about. These are substantial. They're talking a $200 million facility in Russellville.
Well, the legalities of it, though, Chris, do we even know?
No, we don't. But until the application deadline comes, you have lawsuits, but they're not real. They can't really file them until June 1st to find out. So, do we need this letter of local support? Don't we? There's definitely opinions about whether the local vote matters at all or not. The quorum court judge, Ben Cross, came out and said, I'm not really sure they need it, but a lot of the legal wrangling is going to be with the Racing Commission and their process. The other thing I would say is this debate may change actually in the next, I would say even with a week to the deadline, within the next week or so. Part of what was going on in Russellville, there was a little bit of competition for this area. There was it's called Smash It Sports. They wanted to build a very nice, large baseball complex for like travel teams and things of that nature. Well, they announced just early this week that they've decided on Jacksonville, Arkansas. It's going to come to northern Little Rock. So all of a sudden, you don't have competition for this prime real estate right on, very visible on I-40. I'll be curious to watch in the next week or two how local officials react now that there is not this the seeming competition between different groups for that same parcel of land.
Well, you only have to wait a week because that deadline is May 30th, and I'm sure you're going to get some clarity on that issue. And I think this whole issue of gaming is interesting. You got Pine Bluffs, West Memphis, all got these large projects, and there's going to be competition. There's going to be winners and losers. And, I look at Polk County and compared to the other Pine Bluff, and then you have Hot Springs, and then you have West Memphis, which is close to Memphis. That's going to be competition. Will Polk County be able to compete with these others? So it's going to be real competitive once all these gaming facilities come online, and there's a lot of money at questioning with these projects.
Anybody suspect litigation's coming? We're out of time.
It.
That's it for us for this week. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Support for Arkansas Week provided by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, the Arkansas Times, and KUAR-FM 89.